Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 3 of What If Deku Was a Dragon Slayer. Hope you guys enjoy. Izuku was in a tough spot. He was bleeding and heavily fatigued. He was protecting the two behind him, that being Aizawa and Katsuki. They were both unconscious with a few broken bones. Izuku looks ahead where there is a muscular bird-headed creature looking straight at him with a lifeless gaze. Now our protagonist was wondering how things ended up this way. Flashback to 1 week ago. Izuku woke up like any other day. He got onto the train station and headed to UA only to be stopped by reporters who wanted to know about All Might. The pink-haired boy was annoyed to say the least. He did not like reporters. "I'm from the general course." That made the reporters quickly leave him alone. Our protagonist just smirks and walks towards the gates of UA. The reporters were questioning the grape-haired boy, but that's when they saw the ash blonde. Apparently the reporters had a death wish and approached him. "Oh, you're the boy that got captured by the sludge villain 10 months ago." Katsuki twitched at that and lets off a small explosion from his hands. "Move it or I'm going to blast you all away." The reporters moved away from him in fear. While some of them had recognized Izuku as the one who helped stop the sludge villain. "Cheeky brat, he tricked us." They then turned to Tenya and had asked about how was All Might as a teacher. Only to get a long boring answer in response which made the reporters turn away. "Oh wow, you look sleep deprived." Aizawa just sighed in annoyance and tells the reporters to go away. He then walks through all the reporters and passes through the gates of UA. But that's when one of the new reporters gets annoyed and walks towards him in a shout. We have been here all day. We just want to know about All Might." Said reporter got a little too close and that promptly activated the UA barrier, which made some reporters back away a bit, but they still stood in front of the gates. But now we skip to when everyone got into class. Aizawa opened the door to the classroom and about to shout at them but looked over at the class. That's when he saw everyone was in their seats and quiet. "Good, alright, you guys got something very important to do today." Making the whole class surprised and wondering if they're going to have another test that includes one of them getting expelled. But before that, Katsuki and Midoriya, a word outside. Said two boys just glanced at each other and got up and walked towards their teacher. When they made it to where Aizawa was waiting for them, he nods at the two boys and gestures them to follow him. And the three walked out of the classroom, leaving the whole class confused while the half and half guy looks at the three leaving in slight interest. But back to the three. "So do you two know why I asked to talk outside of the classroom?" Both Katsuki and Midoriya nod. "You both are strong, so don't act like children and destroy things needlessly." "Do I make myself clear? I was surprised when I watched the footage of your fight and with the report from All Might. Listen, you two, being strong is a good thing, but learning how to control that strength is even better. You two should ponder about that a little." But that's all that I had to say. Let's go back inside. The two boys had remained silent and followed their teacher back into the classroom, where once they took their seats Aizawa spoke up. "Okay, from what I had said earlier, you guys will be picking class president and the vice president." Earning him a shout from the class saying finally something normal, but soon afterward everyone was shouting "pick me." And people raising their hands while saying "I am the best choice." But that's when the pervert spoke up. "If I become class rep, all girls have to wear shorter skirts." That's also when Tenya spoke up. "Guys, we need to remain calm. We should hold a vote and see who gets the roles." But that's when Suyu had spoke up after, "But your hand is raised the highest." Pikachu had spoke up as well, "But wouldn't we just vote for ourselves?" Exactly, whoever gets the positions earned it. He then looks over to his teacher who was already going into his sleeping bag. "Is this okay, sensei? Do it however you want, just do it before class ends." He then goes into caterpillar mode and falls asleep. At the end of their voting, Tenya had went around and collected them, where he showed all of the votes with the one who had the most was Izuku Midoriya 5 votes and his vice being Momo Yaoyorozu with 3 votes. The Pomeranian was angry with the results. "Alright, which one of you extras voted for the Pyro?" Said Pyro responds, "What, you think anyone was going to vote for you?" All the while Achiko, Tenya, Kirishima, and Pikachu looked sheepish while whistling to the side. Aizawa had woke up and had said alright, your class rep is Midoriya and the vice is Yaoyorozu. The two of them were standing in front of the podium with Aizawa. He told the two after school he has to talk to them and show them how to manage the class during activities. Making the two nod. That's when they hear the bell for lunch. Aizawa dismisses the class and heads over to the teacher's lounge. Meanwhile, with our protagonist, he was walking with the ash blonde to go get their food. Once they got the food from lunch rush, they looked for an empty seat at a corner somewhere. They only had wanted to do this because Katsuki kept asking Izuku questions about the lightning from the battle trial. Izuku didn't want to tell him, but the constant questioning was starting to annoy Izuku, so he had relented and told him, let's find a seat where no one could hear easily. The Pomeranian nods and spots a seat where the two sit down and about to speak, but that's when Momo and Jairu had came up to the two boys and had asked if they could join them, earning them a grumble from the ash blonde and a sure from the pink-haired boy. Once the two had sat down next to them, Momo spoke up, so I wanted to get to know you a little better, because if we're going to work together as class rep and vice rep, I think we should get to know each other more. And my friend over here Jairu just wanted to come along. Izuku nods, yeah, that would be smart and it would make it easier for us. They continue speaking for a little while longer, but that's when UA sirens go off, making all of the students panic and try to evacuate in a disorganized and rushed manner. Izuku was confused, so what does this mean? Katsuki, getting annoyed at how the students are acting, grabs one of the third years by the collar. So speak, what does this siren mean extra? Said extra responds with, that means someone had infiltrated the school while also getting out of the blonde's grip and running towards the exit. Izuku looks outside to see the UA barrier crumble, but he just sees that it was the press from earlier. He then scoffs and looks at the students rushing out of the lunchroom violently. Our protagonist figured that if he shouted that wouldn't do him any good, so he looks over to his side where he sees Momo looking confused and frightened. Izuku then gets said girl's attention, can you make a microphone? Momo nods. He grins and says alright and sorry for this. Sorry for what? She was cut off by Izuku picking her up bridal style, making the girl blush in embarrassment. Our protagonist then flies over towards the exit, and that's when he pokes Momo, gesturing her to speak and say it's just reporters and the heroes are already trying to make them leave. Momo, after composing herself, still being red from how Izuku was carrying her, speaks up. Everyone calm down, it's just reporters, please calm down and exit in an orderly fashion. Said students looked outside of the window where they saw it was indeed only the press, making them all sigh and walked back into their classroom. Once Izuku had put Momo down, he smelled someone with malicious intent towards the principal's office. He told Momo hold on and rushes towards where he had smelled the person. Momo was confused and looked towards the direction where he ran. Katsuki had came up to her and asked, where did the lizard go side ponytail? Said girl replies, he ran that way, he just said hold on and took off. Katsuki had his eyes wide, wait, he probably smelled something bad. Soon afterward he runs in the same direction as Izuku, making Momo even more confused. Once Izuku had made it in front of the principal's office, that's where he saw a man with a hoodie leaving the office. TSK, what a bother, an NPC had found me out, huh? Who are you calling an NPC, you lowlife? Said lowlife gets angry, well, we can't have anyone know, so I will have to kill you. He rushes at Izuku with his palms out. Izuku dodges out of the way of his strikes while also getting an attack ready. I would like to see you try. Fire Dragon, Iron Fist. The intruder, not expecting Izuku to dodge his attack last second, got hit square in his face, getting burned on said face while the blow had made his hoodie fall back, showing Izuku his messy grayish-blue hair and his wrinkled eyes. He was now scratching at his neck. And oh, now you saw my face too. Wow, you really suck at being a villain, huh? Said villain growls and rushes at Izuku again. The pink-haired boy figured if he was attacking with his palms out, thinks he probably would need to touch him to use his quirk. He just didn't know what kind of quirk he had, so our protagonist made sure to dodge every strike while also countering them. NPC, stop dodging me and die already. Why would I willingly die, are you an idiot? Growling, the blue-haired man now was becoming desperate at killing Izuku and made him sloppy, which in turn made an opening for Izuku. Fire Dragon, Talon. Izuku had kicked the man on top of the head, making said man fall back and land on the floor where his hand had touched the ground. Soon after he did that, the ground had started to decay. Growling, you really are annoying me, brat. Said brat responds with, oh, that's what your quirk does. I just have to make sure you don't touch me and all is good. They both were going to fight again, but that's when they hear an angry Pomeranian shout die as he launches an explosion at the intruder, making the man fall back a few feet. The intruder gets up and started to scratch at his neck more violently, now drawing blood. I can't fight two people without drawing attention towards me, he growls and pulls out his phone, and not a moment afterward a portal had appeared behind him. Know this, brat, I will remember you and I will kill you. After he said that, the portal had vanished, leaving only a few scorch marks and a decayed piece of the ground. Meanwhile, the UA faculty see that most of the barrier had disintegrated, indicating that someone had indeed infiltrated UA. They wonder if an ordinary reporter could have infiltrated the academy. However, Principal Nizu denies that possibility. An element of evil instigated the infiltration, and I wonder if this was a declaration of war. We now skip to 5 minutes later. Izuku and Katsuki were sitting down in front of the principal's office. Once said bear had arrived, he was surprised at seeing the two boys. He then looks over at Izuku, who had a few scratches, and he looked over to the hallway and saw that the floor had cracks, along with burn marks and a few decayed pieces of floor. Nizu becomes serious and soon speaks up, all right, let's go inside my office and discuss what had happened. I will inform Aizawa that you two will be with me for the remainder of the day. The two boys nod and follow Nizu into his office. Once Aizawa had came into his class, he heard the class saying on how it was the right idea to choose Midoriya and Yaoyorozu as their reps. Some having had been confused on why Midoriya and Bakugo were not in class with them. Meanwhile, with Momo, she was worried for Izuku. But that's when Aizawa had got a call. He answers said call and gets a serious face soon after. Alright, that's fine, have them explain to you what happened, tell them there isn't any homework. After he hung up, he told the class that Izuku and Katsuki will be in the principal's office, so let's continue class without them. Making some of the students wonder why they are there, but just shrug it off. But now we skip back to the two boys. So Midoriya, you're telling me you smelled something was off and had rushed to investigate? Said boy nods. Yes sir, right after I had calmed down the students with my vice rep, I had smelled someone with malicious intent. And Bakugo, you said you had asked the vice rep on where Midoriya had went, and after she told you what had happened, you followed shortly after, right? Katsuki nods. Alright, Midoriya explained to me how the encounter had went in full detail. As he says this, he is sipping his tea and offers the two boy tea as well. The two accept, and that's when Izuku starts to speak about how he saw the man coming out through the door, how he had fought him and noticed how he fought with his palms out. Then explained about his quirk when he had knocked him down all the way until Katsuki had arrived. After he was done explaining, Nizu speaks up. Quite troublesome, so someone did infiltrate, and I noticed some files were missing on top of my desk. He has a dangerous quirk to boot with that. Thank you for the information, you two may go home. I will inform the rest of the teachers here at UA at what you told me. Soon afterward, Izuku and Katsuki left UA, with Izuku explaining one for all to the ash blonde. Since said blonde promised he wasn't going to say anything, but he was still surprised about the quirk. But now we time skip to the end of the week. Nijire, after having had heard Izuku got into a fight, got worried for him, which in turn made her more clingy towards him, which Izuku didn't mind one bit. But that is why Nijire was cuddling with Izuku when he had woke up. He had woke her up with a peck on the lips, which promptly woke up the blue-haired girl and gave him a kiss back. They both were getting ready, but that's when Izuku's mom had woke up. Inko, upon seeing the two, just smiles at the two and got ready as well, and shortly after left towards her agency. Izuku and Nijire had left to UA shortly after. both of them holding hands the whole way to UA. Once they arrived at said school, Izuku walked Nijire to her classroom. Then he made his way to his own classroom. Once he arrives into class, it was a normal day, but that's when after lunch Aizawa had spoke up saying he had an announcement: we are going to a field trip. You will learn the trials of rescue, so we are going to USJ, so go grab your hero costumes and meet me in front of the school in 15 minutes. A bus will be there waiting for us. Once the class had arrived at the bus, that's when Tenya tried to tell them to line up, only for Izuku to tell him to calm down. They can just sit, however the seats on the bus aren't like normal buses. While riding on the bus, the students discuss each other's quirks. Tsuyu Azui noted that Izuku's quirk is really strong and had reminded her of All Might. But Ejiro Kirishima protests, saying that All Might doesn't have flames and he doesn't injure himself. They then look over to said boy who was sleeping, having his head on the ash blonde shoulder. All of the students now look over at the two and had asked why is he sleeping. Katsuki responded, because I knocked him out. The class, now having the full attention on him, shouts, why did you knock him out for? Because he asked me to. And why would he ask you to do that? One of his quirk's weakness is motion sickness whenever he gets on vehicles, so before the bus had started he told me to knock him out, which I gladly did. Now be quiet, because you don't want to wake him up. The remaining bus ride was in silence until the bus had stopped. The heroes in training arrive at a large training facility. They were greeted by the Pro Hero 13, where she introduced her facility, the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, while bringing the class inside. Once inside, she starts a small speech about how you have to be careful how you use your quirks when you fight. But that's when Izuku gets into a fighting stance while looking below the stairs at the main plaza of USJ. Shortly afterward, a large group of villains suddenly arrive through a black portal. Izuku, upon seeing said portal, shouts, Sensei, that's the portal from how the villain escaped. Making Aizawa look over to the portal and see that villains are coming out of it, with some students thinking that if they got fake villains here too. Only for Aizawa to cut them off, saying those are real villains. Aizawa told 13 to protect the students and go try to call for help at UA. He was about to jump, but that's when the main villain with hands around his body had spoke. All Might isn't here. He then scratched at his neck, but no matter, he will come when we kill some students. Especially that pink-haired one, he says, this shocking to students and teacher. Getting said pink-haired boy's attention. Oh, I remember you, you were the shitty villain. Making said villain growl and shout back. Yeah, you were the dumb brat that almost ruined my plans. Only because you suck at hiding. What's up with your villain costume? You got a hand fetish or something? What? No, I don't. Sure you don't. They continue to argue until Aizawa cuts the two off. Problem child, stop antagonizing the villain. He then jumps towards said villains. The villain, upon seeing him, were cocky until a few started to try and use their quirks on him, only for it not to work. Wait, what the foo? He couldn't finish the sentence because he got backhanded by Aizawa. They now realize who he was. He was beating the shit out of all of the villains in his path, knocking them out. Meanwhile, 13 tells the class to evacuate, but that's when one of the villains shaped as a black mist appeared and spoke, introducing himself as Kirojiri. I hope you don't mind us interrupting your training. You see, we are here to kill All Might. Making the whole class freeze after hearing that. But that's when Katsuki and Ejiro rushed at Kirojiri and attacked him, but once the smoke cleared he was about to say something, but that's when Izuku came up from behind said villain and threw a flaming fist into his metal collar, making the villain panic. And uses his quirk in a last effort to not get injured too greatly. In which case it worked, at least partly. He was able to teleport most of the students to different areas of USJ. But he was now coughing from receiving the blow from our protagonist. Izuku was teleported to the mountain zone with Momo and Jairu. He was mad. Actually, I take that back, being mad was an understatement. He was absolutely pissed, shouting curse words and punching the floor. The two girls behind him were scared to try and stop him, not having had seen this side of him. Izuku was mad because they were getting attacked, and also, the two villains made him angry. And angry dragons are not fun to deal with. He stopped punching the floor when he heard a dozen villains laughing in front of him while saying, "Oh look, easy prey." Izuku glares at them. "Oh, you think I'm easy prey, huh?" Said pink-haired boy gets up and gets into a stance. "You all are extras." As he says this, he rushes forward towards the villains. "Now out of my way." He then rushes through all of the villains in his area, all the while kicking and punching them, knocking them all out in a matter of a few seconds. The two behind him were shocked at his speed and quite scared of how he was acting right now. Izuku turns around and tells the two to go find our other classmates. Class president orders. After having it said that, he runs away towards the main plaza where he has a bone to pick with the hand guy. Meanwhile, with All Might, he tries to contact 13 and Shota but is unable to. All Might, having a bad feeling, decides to go to the USJ. In a few minutes, however, the principal arrives and tells him to calm down. He then starts to talk about educational theories, and with Small Might noting that he hasn't changed one bit. But back at USJ, 13 notes that they cannot make contact with the outside world at all. She then orders Tenya to dash to UA to tell the teachers what is transpiring and get them to come and help. Tenya at first was skeptical, thinking that running back to UA while leaving behind his classmates would be cowardly and disgraceful. But after some encouragement from his classmates and the pro hero telling said boy to use his quirk to save others, that made Tenya decide to dash back to UA. But that's when Kurogyari overhears their plans and goes to try and stop Tenya. But 13 stands in front of his way, where they now were going to start fighting. Meanwhile, with the other students, Shoto Todoroki easily defeats the villains at the landslide zone by freezing them all. And at the ruin zone, Katsuki and Ejiro defeats the villains that are there, calling them weak. Ejiro then suggests they should go help their classmates. Katsuki declined this plan and told him, "You should go help them out, I'm going to help the pyro out." By now he probably reached the main villains at the plaza and he's going to need my help. But back to the plaza, Shota continues to fight the villains and faces Tamura, where he managed to land a hit, but Tamura grabs his elbow and starts disintegrating it. Shota then looks over to the side in the water zone, where he saw lightning hit all of the villains in the water. He then turns his attention back to the fight and jumps back, but that's when a monstrous villain appears behind him. Meanwhile, at the exit of USJ, Kurogyari beat 13 by using her own quirk against her. Tenya began running towards the exit. Once he got close, Kurogyari once again blocks his path. As Kurogyari was about to warp Tenya away, Achiko grabs onto Kurogyari's metal plates around his neck, causing him to float. Tenya then reaches the exit and opens it and dashes towards UA. After being flung into the air, Kurogyari warps back to Tamura to warn him. Back at the central plaza, Shota tries to get up from the Nomu, but it just holds him down while breaking his arms. That's also when Kurogyari appears next to Tamura and tells him that one of the students have managed to escape, making said villain scratch at his neck. But he stops soon afterward, about to say something, but that's when he got cut off by a fire fist coming into contact to his face. "So first you decide to attack my school, and now you hurt my teacher. I forgot about you, brat." Said boy responds with, "Trust me when I'm done with you, you won't forget me." He then rushes toward Tamura, who in turn shouts Nomu. Before Izuku had reached Shigaraki, the Nomu appeared in front of him, blocking Izuku's path. "Oh, so now you're hiding behind this bird brain," as he says that flames appear around him, his flames now being more fierce to their usual calm. Tamura laughed. "Do you really think I'm the final boss? That bird brain, or so you have called it, he is that anti-symbol of peace." "Oh sure, and I'm All Might with flames, right?" Earning him a growl from the villain. "Haha, your teacher over there tried to fight Nomu, but look how he ended up. My Nomu is as strong as All Might." Izuku then scoffs. "You done yet all this talking and no fighting? Come on, show me that he is as strong as All Might, or are you just lying, you hand freak? Nomu, kill him. Now I'm all fired up." They both rush at each other and meet in front of one another, sending a powerful punch at each other, making a huge shockwave in the process. Shigaraki is now confused. Wait, what? How did he match his punch? Nomu is stronger than All Might. Izuku speaks up. Maybe I'm stronger than All Might. Making everyone shocked at his statement. Our protagonist powers up again. Lightning Flame Dragon mode. Now I will blow you all away. Lightning Flame Dragon. Nomu, stop him, don't let him fire that attack. Said creature rushes at Izuku. In response, our pink-haired protagonist shouts RORRRR, blasting away Nomu and making the whole of USJ shake, leaving a big hole in said facility. Nomu had took the hit for Shigaraki and allowed him enough time to dodge. But once the smoke had cleared, they saw the portion of the ground to the side of the building had been completely destroyed. Shigaraki, being concerned about his Nomu, looks over in that direction, then he smirks. That was a strong attack, but look, my Nomu is going to regenerate back to full health. Izuku then looks over to said bird brain and saw that it was in half and now regenerating. Oh, a regeneration quirk, this will be difficult. But that is the end of this part. Like for another part and tell me in the comments on how this part came out.